Hey, and welcome to episode 106 of Philo. I have a name for this episode, I swear. Everybody's Katamari is the name of this episode. Let me introduce my co-host, which is Robin Fisher. This is Robin Fisher. I swear I know which direction to point. That's Robin Fisher. And then my guest artist is, of course, Stephen Notley. This is Stephen Notley as well. Stephen Notley is known for Bob the Angry Flower, but also worked at like Popcat and stuff. I like Bob the Angry Flower. That's where I met you, was conventions and
Well, I'm glad somebody does.
Anybody who says that they don't like Bob the Angry Flower is like doesn't get it.
Well, they haven't read it, quite honestly.
Of most people having no idea that Bob the Angry Flower exists.
But
The vast majority of humanity is in that category.
You have a larger readership than the show.
Say, I don't know. That's the thing about the modern era of metrics. You just go, oh, well, how many, subscribers on Instagram do I have? Oh, 100. How many people looked at my last cartoon? Oh, 33 people looked at it. Cool. Okay, I guess I'll keep doing it. But
even by those metrics, still larger than this show's audience. Hello, Magic Marmot. Hello, Kay. In chat there, and then yes, where we left off, we had our buttery, cheesy agent getting licked by the Xenomelian, and then cheese bomb. Philo arrives confused by a suspicious trail of popcorn. Magic Marmot says, I'm familiar with Bob the Angry Flower.
Magic Marmot is one of the elite few.
Yes, well, it is an elite club because it's hilarious, and I will forever, and I will bring up this joke over and over and over again because it's brilliant. The dropping of the folder from one panel to the next panel into the trash can. It's just it's fourth wall breaking. It's a comic, it's perfect. It's just perfect because it drops. It connects the two panels. Like I went to art school for comics, and we studied stuff like that, and like that's something that I would have brought to class and go look at this.
So I think it surely must have had some antecedent in either something like Rob Schrab would have done in Scud the Disposable Assassin, or equally possible in some of the stuff Phil Foglio was doing back in the 90s, Myth Adventures, lots of sort of playful panel design and stuff like that. So,
did you ever read Buck Godot by him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're the only other person I've ever met who actually knows that exists.
Yeah, I think of Phil Foglio as primarily the artist of Buck Godot and of the graphic adaptation of the first Myth Adventures book, and illustrating a bunch of them. Yeah. Even though, of course, now he is known for, and has been primarily known for, Girl Genius for decades now. Right?
That's my favorite thing he did. Sorry, I really like Girl Genius.
My introduction. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say my introduction was Dragon Magazine and Magic: The Gathering.
Yeah, and he did those as well. The Phil and Dixie comics. I mean, and it's such a cliche to go well, I preferred your earlier work, but I think Phil, the Myth Adventure stuff in the Buck Godot is my preferred stuff from Phil's long and illustrious illustrating career.
Well, I feel that way about Jim Lee and his run on the X-Men, right? That is my absolute favorite run of his art.
Of who?
Jim Lee.
Oh,
right. When he was working on the X-Men and Chris Claremont was the writer, and he had Scott Williams as inker over him. It was like out of his work. Right now, he's doing a style that has like a lot of extra lines on it and everything. But back then, it was like it was the perfect amount of clean, the perfect amount of anatomy. But I'm getting distracted. Philo's turn.
Like that 90s era X-Men stuff is when I was sort of on the way away from the classic Marvel comic stuff and much more into the
alternative side of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Independent black and white side of things.
Precisely. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's because you were in that circle making those comics and hanging out 90s. With those people.
Like the late 80s, early 90s, plus like Cerebus and that kind of stuff. So, so that Jim Lee era of Marvel was where, because I used to be like a very, very committed New Mutants and X-Men reader, but I sort of could tell that I was way out of and away from that type of stuff in the late 80s, early 90s. So
I always felt like the most what's the word? The most exotic and innovative artist that Marvel could ever have would always work on Daredevil and New Mutants. Because it's not like just Bill on New Mutants, which of course is iconic. And it's not like just Frank Miller on Daredevil. There's like all these other artists that are just so outside of the box sometimes that really will blow your mind.
Alex Maleev.
It seemed like they were always on Daredevil or New Mutants.
Alex Maleev, I felt like was a kind of a gamble for them as an artist.
Well, certainly as an artist for a superhero comic. Right, I mean, like, his art is not
a lot of photo reference.
Exactly, it's very, very. I mean, it makes sense for Daredevil, but it's not. It's not a Superman, right? It's not guys in leotards running around punching each other.
Not typically, but there's the occasional punch in a Daredevil comic.
Sure, but
it's usually him just like looking angsty and looking at a cross. Angsty.
Well, wasn't Believe like was paired up with Bendis writing Daredevil, wasn't he?
Yeah. And it was pretty good writing.
Well, yeah, because then it's much more just like it's like a crime novel in comic form rather than a superhero comic, really.
It's one of my favorite runs.
The lights, like Gotham Central is another one that's really good for that. I don't know.
It's good writing on Gotham Central too, though.
And like that's a cool.
Yeah, I quite like that because it's like Batman's such a peripheral character in it. It's not about him at all.
And trying to sort of investigate what would it be like to live in this world full of superheroes, but not be part of the super. So every time like one of these superheroes, or at least in the case of Gotham Central, one of the supervillains, kind of comes within your sphere, it's this really strange, disorienting, usually sort of catastrophic event.
So it's kind of like Marvel's, but from the supervillain's perspective?
No, it's Gotham Central is about the detectives that live in Gotham all the time.
Okay.
But then the superheroes and the supervillains are peripheral characters. Like they're there and they're happening, doing things, but
so this is like the major crime unit, as if it was just sort of like
it's more like Homicide. It'd be like a David Simon comic.
And so every so often, like most of the time, they're dealing with, normal sort of, criminals. But then every so often, it's like, and then the Joker shows up and starts sniping, like, the people off the street or whatever.
It was written by Greg Rucka and I think Ed Brubaker. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they alternated story arcs.
I think so. But yeah, so it's just like, how do the cops feel about Batman and the Joker and all? Like, we see Batman and the Joker sort of eye to eye with them. We're with them in those comics. Whereas Gotham Central is all about what would it be like to just live in a world with Batman in it. You wouldn't see Batman and hang out with Batman. You'd only hear about him. Or you, like, if the one time you ever had an encounter with Batman would be a story you tell people for the rest of your life kind of thing. But you,
I have a not safe for work joke I tell on stage about Batman. I will tell you when we're off air. But
not didn't you come up around the same time as Brubaker? Did you ever, after reading Lowlife, did you ever expect him to turn into the DC shill that he has become?
I don't know. I think I interrupted.
Oh, that's okay.
No. Getting to the story, we have the fight coming out the window, and then everybody Katamaris. I need you to share your screen, Steven.
Okay.
Do you want to take first panel, or do you want me to take first panel?
I'll take the first panel. Give me something to do.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. There we go.
Yep.
Katamari.
Boop, boop. So they Katamari down the street. What happens then? We have a couple people in the audience. Come on, help us out, audience.
Well, how big is it going to get? And are we going to start thinking about what's going to stop it?
I don't know. Like I never played Katamari.
Really?
I change it.
It's one of the great in my mind. It's one of the great arguments for video games as being art.
As art, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that, but I never had a Nintendo, and so it was just one of those that kind of escaped.
I don't think it was ever on Nintendo, but yeah.
Or was it PlayStation?
Whatever.
I never had a PlayStation either.
I'm not sure what the original console was. I think it was it would have been like Xbox / PlayStation 2 or whatever, or 3, something like that. I think PlayStation 2, but I don't know if it was exclusive to PlayStation or whether it was also on Xbox. I don't know, whatever.
I get the main concept of it.
Well, that's what's so brilliant about it is that concept. Before the Katamari came along, that metaphor really only existed in the context of like a snowball rolling down a hill and getting larger and larger and larger as it rolls down the hill, right?
Yeah.
But then that notion of a thing that is just a small thing, but like every single thing that touches it gets glued to it, and it just becomes a larger and larger thing that continues to roll along, gathering up more and more bigger things as it goes, is unique to Katamari Damacy. That's what a Katamari is, and like the video game is the perfect way to express that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I guess you could have done like a ice show spectacular or an opera or a painting or something, but the video game really is the purest way to convey that idea of the small thing continues to roll along, gathering things to it and becoming ever larger and more consequential as time goes on.
Well, I know that the final act is you roll up the universe. Like you finally, like you're so big that you roll up the universe, like planets, suns.
Yeah, as I'm saying, at what point are we going to stop him? And are we going to stop him?
Yeah, so...
Or will he roll up the Philo universe?
So if they're a Katamari, how big do they get?
Well, they... In the actual game, the way it works is that you're sort of doing levels where, let's say you start out the size of like a golf ball or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you may end up at the size of, let's say, a small dollhouse. Something that's you've got like 2 minutes to sort of roll up like thumbtacks and erasers and so on until eventually you're rolling up like mice and you're rolling up slightly larger things until the whole thing is, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 feet across. And then the next level will be, okay, now you're starting at something that's about 2 or 3 feet across, maybe the size of a basketball. And by the end of like 2 or 3 minutes, you're kind of rolling down the street. You're just trying to pick up cars and trees.
That's the best part.
Okay. Now I have to ask, because you did work in the industry and you are so passionate talking about Katamari. What is your favorite video game?
Of all time?
Yeah.
I sort of don't have like an automatic answer for that. Like, I guess probably my snap answer would be Star Control 2 or Star Control is the one that I can just point to and go like, yep. My favorite video game that I personally worked on is Peggle. Followed pretty quickly after by Bookworm Adventures and Plants vs. Zombies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one that I just sort of still have the strongest.
You worked on Plants vs. Zombies?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That is very popular in China. At least in 2013 to 2016 when I lived there. The kids really like that game.
It is way more popular in China than it is in the United States. So it also a great game and probably the most popular game that I worked on. But I like Peggle more. But then, Star Control 2.
I liked Automata. That was good too.
Atomica?
Or Automata. The one where you had the two you had like two atoms and you had to connect them and.
That sounds like that sounds like Atomica, which is a PopCap game, and you would have a grid of different sort of colored circles, and each sort of turn more circles would appear, but you could click on one and sort of indicate a path that would bring it next to others, and so you were trying to bring them like green ones next to green ones, and if you made like a square 4 or 6 or something like that, they would disappear. But like at each turn, like the board would become more occluded, so it became more difficult to find paths for the blah 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 and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I drew the guy, the Atomica guy from the main menu of that game for PopCap before I started working for it. I did that as like a freelance illustration. So I remember that game, but I can't say that it's one of my favorites. I mean,
well, I spent many hours playing that game. I enjoyed it. Okay, so they're in a Katamari.
But I will say my favorite video game in terms of hours, is I'm playing the living hell out of it, is Earth Defense Force.
Oh, Earth Defense Force. Oh, why are you playing for hours? Like what?
Well,
what's the sync?
Because it's like just sort of a full bore kind of arcade style shooter set in a world where you are a member of the Earth Defense Force and you're just fighting, like invading monsters, right? Like, and the monsters are just sort of like truck-sized ants and ant-sized bees and frog soldiers that are like 5 stories tall and giant robots and UFOs and it's just the kind of game where it's like it started out. It's part of a series. It was like a PlayStation thing and it started out as almost kind of a joke, but eventually it's just like it's so dumb. But it just throws like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fucking monsters at you. It's sort of like the movie Starship Troopers if you actually had effective weapons.
Nice.
So it looks like just waves and waves and waves of creatures attacking you, but unlike in that movie where their guns basically do nothing to the monsters.
And without the war is hell, metaphor.
Well, it does. I mean, the other thing about it is that it has this kind of earnestness. Like on one hand, there's this kind of oddball quality where they'll see a bunch of giant ants and they'll go something like, "We will call these invasive species alpha." It's like they've never heard of ants or they don't know what spiders are. This is invasive species beta. And then they will have these sort of like, the EDF will always prevail. And so it has this kind of charming naivete, this kind of straight shooting lack of irony, I guess, that has a very specific charm. So it kind of reminds me, not that it is, but it kind of reminds me of those like rail shooters you used to have in arcades. Well, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say where like they would have you fight dinosaurs, right, from Jurassic Park, and then it's like fight these dinosaurs, and then you would have a special weapon just for those dinosaurs.
Well, right, yeah, like I mean, I'm familiar with those kinds of games like House of the Dead or whatever, where as you say, it's a rail shooter, and you're just kind of like you actually have like a plastic gun that you're aiming at the screen.
Yeah.
Whereas here, no, it's more like a sandbox. You're existing in a space that's maybe a couple of miles on a side, and it can be in the countryside. It can be in a bunch of different city environments. Blah blah blah.
But the writing absurdity was kind of what I was getting at of the rail shooter.
Right.
Was like I remember in those like Jurassic Park games, they would be like, "Oh no, the pterodactyls are attacking," you know, and,
Right,
and
yeah.
you would have to take it like absolutely seriously.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
yeah. So and plus there's like 4 different unit types, and so you could just sort of play through the game on easy in one unit type, and then play through normal, and then play through hard, and then it's like, okay, I want to try this other one. It's like, oh, this other, like originally I was just kind of a regular space marine or marine ranger, but now I'm a wing diver. I'm a jetpack wearing kick-ass girl with like a gun that's just sort of a huge sparkler that's and has a range of about like 20 feet, but if you basically fly point blank up into the monster's face, it's blasphemous, this thing. And it's sort of like, imagine being in sort of a run and gun battle with a bunch of 5-story tall frogs with laser shotguns, and you're just sort of like flying around, 15 square blocks,
I feel
buildings and so on and so forth. Anyway,
I feel like Philo needs to Katamari over these creatures. You're describing.
We start drawing something.
That's what I'm saying. Is your panel 1?
So what is it?
That's what I'm saying. Is I think that Philo needs to Katamari over these creatures you're describing, because you know what they look like.
Well, okay, so give me the caption then. What you could say.
Yeah, and I would basically just say, like, so what was the name of the game? Refresh my memory.
It was called Earth Defense Force.
Earth Defense Force. So the caption is we Katamari into Earth Defense Force. Period. And then we like the royal we, says Ian in the back there. And then if we're Katamariing in there and then we're picking up bugs, that ball's gonna get kind of big. So where's the ball headed?
We have a new visitor, and they think we're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
We are not playing Dungeons and Dragons. We're doing a show. It's a live
improv comic art show.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe. Okay, so then what happens after they Katamari? Where does the ball head?
Into the ocean?
Okay. And then I'll just say splash then.
We haven't done any water stuff that I can think of, have we? Like underwater things in our adventures?
Are you going to make me draw an underwater scene?
Oh. You don't have to do what I say.
It's okay.
I mean, they can float to the surface because they're hollow inside, maybe, but they're so heavy everybody drowns and dies, and that's the end of the story. I don't know. Choose your own adventure.
The video games I've been playing lately have been very boring. I've been playing Minecraft and sharing it with my daughter. And so, how big are these guys?
What do you guys build in Minecraft?
I've just been building a house. I play survival, and she likes my house, and so I make a creative version of the same world, and then she does creative stuff with it. She has eggs of different creatures, and has fun. Okay, Earth Defense Force. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Steven. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just drawing.
Yeah. I just want you to, have like a chill time. Oh my gosh, there's like giant wasps in this game that you fight.
Yep. As I say, like there's this kind of charming naivete on the part of the EDF guys, because they don't seem to recognize a lot of very straightforwardly obvious things, but they're say they're enthusiastic about fighting them for the sake of humanity.
Well, if they're like space marines, maybe they're not from Earth and have never seen a wasp before.
Well, they are from Earth. It's just a slightly oddball Earth that is just different than ours in that sort of peculiar respect.
Yeah, Ian says that they're like 40K Warhammer Earth. I don't know if that's true, but I'm gonna draw a giant wasp all the same.
I mean, yeah, yes and no. 40K is a different feel,
different animal. I think
kind of a different energy, right? 40K is like in the grim darkness of the future. There's only war, right? And so that's the joke.
I always felt like it was a critique on the imperialism of England.
It's that too. It's a bunch of stuff. But yeah, like at least the appeal for your typical Warhammer fan, I think, is the grimdark. And while there's plenty of kind of grimdark qualities to the world of EDF, they don't treat it that way. Like, you know, in the first, because this is like EDF 6 that I'm talking about. So, you know, it's like a sequel to EDF 6 is a sequel to EDF 5, and the way that EDF 6 works is that it basically is a time travel game in which you keep going back into EDF 5 missions over and over and over again, but they keep being different because the aliens that you're fighting are themselves going back in time and trying new strategies. You keep playing the same level over and over again, except they've changed it. It's like, oh, now you're fighting a bunch of androids that actually really look more like if you took a bunch of balloons and made a bunch of kids' toys out of, like, with pipe cleaners as arms and legs. Those are like this. So that's just sort of like.
Well, if you're going back in time and they're going back in time, isn't it like that Tom Cruise movie?
It is. I no doubt the Tom Cruise movie is like a direct inspiration. Because you keep going back in time. There's a scientist who's also going back in time. So every few levels you'll play, you're going, oh, this is the world, and then this giant ring will appear, and it's like their time machine. And then the next day, it's the present day, but now history has changed. And so now it's like the last time you were out there, the city was wrecked, but still somewhat livable. But now it's like, oh yeah, we lost the world, we got our ass kicked, but we still gotta go out fighting, and now we're fighting these androids instead of the giant frog.
One of my favorite things to do is going on YouTube and stuff and finding like Easter eggs in things in video games, or stuff that data miners had found in the code that either was left there because things pile on top of each other in the main file, right? Or it's there because it's linked to something else, or it's there for a variety of reasons. But I love seeing that stuff because it's like seeing behind the curtain. And there's one guy who will make camera mods where you might be in a cutscene or something, but what he does is he makes these mods where you can pause the cutscene at any time, and then he will take the camera and like go explore the cutscene and see how it's built, right? See how the set's built. And so he like went into Dead Space and saw how they built the planet, and it was just basically a big flat JPEG. and just, you know, all of these little things that it's like seeing a magic trick. I love it. I'm curious what all of the developers have hidden in this game, because it's you're running around so frantic in it, right?
Yeah, I mean the gag is that you're just overwhelmed with a ridiculous number of enemies, right? Yeah. It is just pure arcade style run and gun action, except in a kind of game that never quite existed in the arcade, because in the arcade you never quite had a sandbox style game where you could just run around a large area and do as you wanted in it.
Mm-hmm.
That was just, you know, arcades tended to have what you were talking about earlier, the sort of like everything's on rails. You know, you're basically on like, you know, on rails, and you're just shooting at whatever goes by, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to actually running around and running and gunning and trying to survive in this sort of vast space that's filled with like demolished buildings or hills or caves or what have you.
What's in your dream game?
Well, that's a lot of what is in my dream game is in EDF. It scratches a lot of itches. It's basically just a super fast-paced, kind of mindless thing where I can just sort of get into a zone of just shooting and staying alive. But, you know, like what I said earlier, I mean, like Star Control, which was my earlier answer to my favorite game, more of it was like this sort of exploration. I mean, like it was two things. One, it was like this brilliant melee action style game of 2D spaceships, like essentially like asteroids, right? So they could rotate left, right, thrust, fire. But they were also different. Like every ship like handled differently, and different kind of weapons, different strengths, different special abilities, and each ship kind of conveyed a ton of stuff about the alien race it was a ship on. And then on top of that, it was this sort of huge star map where you would sort of fly into a solar system and scan the solar system and go like, oh, there's 6 planets, and you go to this planet and land, and it's like, oh, we're picking up life science. You go down and you pick up some monsters and sell them to the traveling aliens that buy bio data and get, you know, various. You mine, you pick up like minerals and use them to repair your ship and blah blah blah, and all the while kind of trying to solve this big space mystery, facing off against the Urquhart. And so it's just like, I mean, I did a Bob about it years ago, where it's just sort of like Bob celebrating the greatest space adventure of all time, Star Control.
Yeah.
As the Phantom Menace was good. It's just like, because it's just got tons of cool lore, and the Urquhart are really interesting, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The ships are awesome, and when you're playing Star Control, it's like punch fighter, punch fighter, punch fighter. It's like the sound effect for when you're operating the Urquhart battleships, right? And indeed, it's lots of fun. You gotta be careful. You know, get killed with buttons.
I think that like when I was young, I had the $10 disc, right, or the free disc that had just demos on it of a lot of video games, and so like I played the hell out of the TIE Fighter demo.
Yeah.
And there was other games on there. Like I think that was my introduction to Commander Keen. I don't know if you remember Commander
that
Keen.
One, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, it was a platformer, you know. And we had Sega Master System when I was a kid, and we had Sega Genesis. So with Sega Master System, I played Alex Kidd in Miracle World. And that one actually had a really good soundtrack for, you know, like a 8-bit game.
Right.
And then the Genesis was 16-bit. So, you know, the games had a lot better graphics, and you know, it was a big jump in graphics and stuff. But where I grew up, everybody had Nintendo, and so like I couldn't talk with anybody about like games because they all played different games than I did.
Yeah, I mean, like the version of Star Control that won my heart wasn't. I mean, the most famous one is Star Control 2, which is the sort of the full version. Whereas Star Control 1, or at the time just Star Control, was only the tactics, only the battles. It had a kind of strategic mode, but it was just sort of like a 3D map kind of dots rotating. The guts of the game was just this sort of like head-to-head spaceship versus spaceship battle type stuff. And it was only in the sequel that it got all this extra lore and so on. Even though it had a ton of lore in the original game, it just didn't have a lot of that kind of exploring stuff that we now expect, where it's like you're actually having conversations with the alien, you're unlocking mysteries, and blah, blah, blah. This was more just like, oh, you know, the instruction manual explains the context of this big conflict that you're a part of, and all the ships all the races have these different kinds of weird histories, relationships, and blah, blah, blah. And, but yeah, as the original version was just the combat.
Yeah, I've been playing RimWorld, and that's been kind of fun. I don't know if you've ever played it, but you have to build it.
RimWorld?
RimWorld. You have to build like a space colony and try and keep it alive on like another planet, and you get attacked by raiders, and sometimes there's like orbital attacks, you know, of lasers, just because people just don't like you. Yeah, it's interesting. You have to, like, your people can die of sickness, and so you have to like keep medicine around, keep them healthy, and it's a colony keep alive game. Those are the kinds of games that I like. I like the kind where you can pause it and think about what you're doing and go, oh gosh, what's my next move?
Yeah, that is also a fun. I mean, I have my own podcast. We're talking about PopCap games, and we just had this interview with the designer of Peggle, and again, it's such a weird thing. I mean, for a game that I assumed would be sort of recognized as one of the great games of all time, and I think it is known by its fans, but it's not as well known as, say, Plants vs. Zombies, which, while a great game, I don't think is as sort of like profoundly revolutionary as Peggle. And yet, where the hell was I going with this? What were you saying about the games?
Well, we were just kind of talking about like types of games that we would like. I was talking about RimWorld, and you know, I like games that I can pause.
Oh, right, yeah, and I was just sort of saying, like, the thing I liked about Peggle was that, like, it has this very interesting kind of, the way you interact with it is you're looking at this static board. You kind of take as much time as you like to sort of size up your shot by kind of aiming a little cannon, and you're firing a little metal ball that bounces its way down the screen and different pegs and so on. But then once you take that shot, you are just watching the ball. You can't affect its movement anymore, right? So it's this sort of strange mix of pool and pachinko and like pinball. And there was something of a controversy when we were developing it, where people going like, well, you can't have a game where you just sit and watch. You kind of have to give the player something to do. It's not okay to just have them sit there and watch the consequence of their action play out. But it turns out that it's like, well, no, that is not true in this case. In this case, the game benefits most by by the fact that you sort of size up the whole situation, make a decision, fire, take that action, and then as the ball bounces, you can sort of predict how the first bounce is going to go, and somewhat for the second bounce, by the third, you just don't know. You're just along for the ride, but you are along for the ride. You follow the ball down the course of the board with great interest, and indeed, like one of the things that Ace, the programmer, did that was very canny was to have a replay feature.
Yeah.
Such that if you had this great shot where the ball sort of bounced and then it's going to miss the bucket, but then it hit this other thing and went flying back up, and then then they barely went into the free ball bucket, and yay!
Slowing down when it went into the free ball bucket was also a nice touch.
Yeah. So with that, it was sort of a recognition of like the power of spectating in a game, which isn't necessarily the best thing for most games, but in Philo at least, that seemed to be something that really worked for him. So.
Well, you mentioned pachinko, right? And pachinko has the same concept of like watching where the ball goes, right? And the expansion on pachinko was the pinball machine. And so they actually had to argue that pinball was a game of skill. And there was like court cases and stuff where a guy had to bring a pinball machine in front of a judge and play pinball in front of a judge to prove it was a game of skill. And he had to call his shots and say, see this corner? I'm going to hit that corner. And he said like 20 times or something, and he did it. Right? And on the pinball machine, like bam, 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 with the ball. And then once he did that, the judge is like, okay, this is a game of skill. We can allow pinball to be federal, because it was at the Supreme Court level of whether or not pinball should be considered gambling or not.
Right.
Because pachinko is considered gambling. And
because pachinko is gambling, and I mean, like now there are different versions of pachinko, but the version that I think I'm familiar with is where there's two starts. So one where you just sort of pull the little plunger and then it just fires the ball, basically pinball minus the flippers.
Yeah.
But then there's also kind of a version where you get like a cup of balls and you just sort of dump it into the top of the board, and they all just sort of bounce around, and end up in different buckets with different scores and so on, which is that is gambling, right? Because that has nothing to do with skill. It's just a complete distribution of where the balls all end up.
Yeah.
It's not as interesting as Peggle because you don't care about any one particular ball because there are dozens, right? There's just like a whole bunch of balls going, right? Like it's kind of like when you're playing pinball and you get like a multi-ball or something. It's like, it's chaos. Whoa, that's crazy, which is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you play pinball at least a little, you can sort of learn some basic things like, okay, well, there is a skill quality to this game. The most important one is like you can trap the ball. You can sort of like put the flippers in such a way that the ball will just come to rest, and then you could take your shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's sort of crazy how few modern pinball players seem to realize that that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to trap the ball and then take the careful shot with the flippers, so that you can take the same shot again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But that is what pinball skill is all about.
Yeah, my brother always told me I was playing wrong when I did that, and I'm like, but it feels right.
Well, your brother was wrong, because that is exactly how you're supposed to.
Well, I'm glad that I was right and he was wrong. That's good to know. I'll rub it in later. He actually, no, to his credit, and speaking of games and stuff, he made the third mission pack to Quake, him and like one other person in his bedroom when he was like 16. And so the only problem was it was released the day after Quake 2, so no one bought it.
Right.
But yeah, he did that, and then he learned a lot about business because the distributor kind of cut his name out of it and stuff.
Right.
But I remember playing in Worldcraft, which was the game engine that Ken's Labyrinth and Wolfenstein and Doom were made in. And then I'm trying to think what else was made in it. But I know those 3 games were made in this engine. And I remember making levels in that engine. That was fun. But that was a misspent childhood. It didn't lead to anything. I think that like my favorite quality in a video game is replayability.
Well, that is one of the things that I greatly admire about Peggle is, I mean, one of the things I've always sort of said about it is that like if death truly is, or if death turns out to be just sort of being sealed in a white room with no doors and windows and like a view of the things that you got to keep from your apartment, like what would be the best stuff to have? It's like, well, you can do worse than just having Peggle because you'd eventually run out of, you'd go insane after the first billion years or whatever, but like Peggle would help you keep it together for quite a chunk of that because you could just sort of keep learning more, keep getting better at it, keep uncovering new subtleties and secrets and abilities. And there's a lot of games that you just sort of like run out. You're just like, okay, I've done everything 100 times.
Well, you can create new challenges for yourself, like trying to hit, an orange peg from this side all the way to that side.
Or trying to do everything with like one, like without losing. I mean, like the speedrun community is very interesting that way, and like there are games like Elden Ring where people will give themselves this kind of very like these extra harsh conditions where it's like, okay, I'm gonna start like as a dude who's naked with no weapons, and I'm gonna make it through this entire game in like 2 hours, and I'm not gonna take even 1 minute.
Jeez.
And they'll live stream it. It's like, okay, well, cool, buddy, like have fun, but it works for it. People watch.
Video games are a spectrum, though. Like, that's why they have the difficulty scale. Because sometimes it's the 6-year-old kid that is just playing to have fun and or like my 5-year-old where I put on creative mode so she can't die and she can make as many zombies as she wants and have a good old time. Or you step up the difficulty if you want it more difficult. Right? Like the speedrunning community, you're saying that they put these challenges on themselves of like, I'm going to do this in 5 hours or I'm going to do this with 1 heart throughout the whole thing or whatever the challenge is that they give themselves and others, because once one person does it under those conditions, more people want to beat that record.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the speed run as a concept is like, I'm going to beat this game in X amount of time, right?
Yeah.
And, okay, so then somebody said, like, and then it's like a world record. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to beat that record. I'm going to do it faster. I'm not going to make any mistakes, or I'm going to find some bug or weird quirk of the game that allows me to skip like these 4 levels or whatever. And it's all for like sort of, cred and vibes and mood. But it's
Well,
it's something for people to care about, so why not?
again, going back to watching those videos about like little things hidden in video games, there was a guy who was playing Super Mario Brothers between streams, and he left it his console. This is an actual NES console. He left his console on and stuff, and then when he came back on the world map, Mario had a little blue bird following him on the world map. And he's like, I don't know how it got there. He took video with his phone. He's like, I only played this far. I was gone for this long, and when I came back, there's this bird. And other people have found this bird in the code, and they have initiated like this bird on the world map in the code. But this, like, how long has that game been out? Is the first time it's ever been organically recorded happening in a game on a real console, on a real cartridge, while someone was playing the game.
Right.
And so it's like, it's so neat that like there's these little like Easter eggs that the people put in there. Like I know you probably know this one about I think it's Resident Evil I want to say 7, where there's someone in green. It's just a flat like standee in one of the buildings way far off in the distance. And you can kind of see it if you point at it with your gun, but it's really not meant to be seen by anybody. And so if someone thinks it might be a picture of a developer that was just kind of snuck in there, but it's become kind of famous. Like, people have even made t-shirts and stuff of it, of this person in green. And then when they remade the game, they removed it, and people complained on the forums and stuff of like the fact that this little Easter egg was missing, so they added it back with an update.
Right. Well, that does not surprise me. I mean, people connect to the oddest things. As a video game designer, you have a kind of set of concerns and things that are important to you, but then the players may not feel that way. They may care about very different things, and it can often be just some oddball little detail that you just threw in for fun. Like I think on Peggle Nights on the main menu, so like it just sort of when the game sort of starts and it's sitting there and it's waiting for you to press play, there are these little kind of fireflies just sort of floating around, and you can, if you're quick with the mouse, they will avoid the mouse. So if you just sort of mouse around, you'll see that the fireflies respond to the mouse. But then if you're quick enough, you can click them and they'll sort of disappear in a little tinkle, and then that is like a tracked stat in the game that'll say like fairies clicked. There's people like that kind of thing, like stuff that gives the impression that the game world is alive in some way. It's as much as that shit you get in your game, I recommend it for prospective game makers. Put stuff into the game that arouses emotion. People dig that.
Well, like, if you were to make a Bob game, what would you put in the Bob game?
I don't have much of an idea about what that would be like. I mean, other than just some dumb, like media tie-in platformer, right? It's just like Bob's running along and all kinds of dumb things from the cartoon pop out. But like, Bob doesn't even have a gun, like So there isn't an action that Bob does that is sort of singular enough to go, oh, well, a video game in which Bob sort of does this over and over again. I mean, I don't know. It'd probably be something like the Simpsons games or whatever. Or the South Park. Like, the South Park games are actually pretty good for that. Like the Stick of Truth and so on, where it's like, well, this is kind of like if you were kind of a cross between like a Grand Theft Auto sandbox kind of environment, but also sort of as if you were playing an episode of the show.
I would think that a good Bob game might be something like Caroline, if you've ever seen that game, where it's like a puzzler kind of game, and you're in that game, this guy's like trying, I think it's called Caroline, but he's trying to
the animated movie.
No,
based on the Neil Gaiman book or whatever.
No, he's trying to break up.
Well, I'm thinking of Coraline. Sorry.
Yeah, no, he's trying to break up with his girlfriend, right? And he meets another girl with the exact same name, right? And this other girl is like very alluring, very sexy, and so he starts having these dreams where these girls are like torturing him by making him do these puzzles, and that's the gameplay, is these puzzles. And so there's a storytelling aspect of the gameplay where you have to make dialogue tree decisions between the two girls of who you decide to date, and then there's the puzzle part of the game that you solve. I think it's called Caroline. I think that's the name of it. Let me check. Let's see. Game solve puzzles. That is not it. It's something like that. So it's a girl's name.
Is it Catherine?
Catherine. It might be Catherine.
That sounds again familiar, but I don't really know anything about it other than believe it exists.
See, you were like, you've never played Katamari, but I've also, yes, it's Catherine. Yes, that's the game. Yes, it's Catherine.
Well, and so yeah, that's like a dating sim kind of like Danganronpa or whatever, like those sorts of games where you're like a kid and you're usually sort of surrounded by a bunch of other kids in a high school situation, but there's like a death game.
It's not one of those. It's not one of those. It's a puzzle game. And so the dialogue trees and stuff are kind of like that, but you get different dialogue trees depending on how well you do on the puzzles.
Right.
And so, yeah, so it's that's why I would think like why I would consider like Bob would be a good for puzzle game. I don't know, like because he's smart.
I suppose so, though. Yeah, those kinds of puzzles. I don't know. That would be someone else's job to figure out how that all fit together.
Yeah, you would just be sitting back with the license money.
Well, yeah, all dollar of it.
All dollar of it. Well, I don't know if you sold your soul and you let EA destroy it.
Well, believe me, I would love to sell my soul if anyone was buying, but nobody's interested. So.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, Joe Rogan kind of sold his soul.
Who?
Joe Rogan, podcast guy. He used to, or still announces for UFC. Was on news radio. Stand-up comic.
I mean, I've heard of him now. I don't really know that much about his history. I mean, I know he's like a very well-known, popular kind of internet personality. That's about as much as I know about Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he used to interview like a lot of people on his show, pretty much anybody on his show, and then Sirius FM, or I don't know if it's FM, whatever, but Sirius Radio gave him this huge deal that was like millions of dollars to just go exclusive to Sirius. And so he went exclusive to Sirius and then moved down to Texas, created a comedy club called The Mothership that caters exclusively to right-wing and MAGA comics, and kind of like stopped having kind of hard interviews for those kinds of people on his show. He kind of started having soft interviews for people. Like, how's your hair?
Right.
Was one of the questions he asked Donald Trump. And so, that's all I have to say on that. I am done with panel 2. I don't know where you are with panel 1.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on to another thing.
Okay. So I have them going into the ocean. What happens after they go into the ocean?
Do they sink or float?
It's a Katamari ball. Do they?
I would think they stink because it's super heavy. But we can do whatever we want. They can float.
Do they suck up the ocean?
Do they absorb it all? That's a good question.
In their Katamari ball. I don't know. This is where I left off for your reference. Is there's now giant.
What does that say then?
Says splash.
Oh, okay. Not up to me. You guys are the story smiths here. It's on you to guide this journey.
Insanity. Okay, so I feel like we have a lot of loose ends. We have the polyamorous chameleons that want the xenomelion. We have the xenomelion is now kidnapped by they need another Katamari ball, says Magic Marmot. Okay, that's your panel. They need another Katamari ball.
Yeah,
right.
But what's on that one?
What is it?
What's that one about?
They meet another Katamari ball.
But what's on that Katamari ball?
I don't know. That's up to Steven to decide.
All right.
So what happens after they meet another Katamari ball? Do we bring back the xenomelion? Do we just cut to like a billboard or something, and he's like larger than life now?
Yeah, like Mark.
You know, Marky Mark was he like, I don't know. You should Google some stuff that he did when he was younger. Like,
I know all about the stuff he did when he's younger. I'm not supporting him. I just picked him because he had billboards everywhere when he was younger.
Yeah, that's true. But so did like NSYNC.
I don't remember seeing billboards of NSYNC in Times Square. I'm sure they were there, but up in Canada we got the Marky Mark one. Because he was a Calvin Klein model.
Was he? I don't know. I don't remember Marky Mark that well. I thought he was kind of a butterface.
Maybe, I don't know. But he was a model.
Okay.
It was all about his physique. They only wanted him for his physique because it was Calvin Klein underwear.
So what happens after they meet another Katamari ball? I have a cat that wants attention. What happens after they meet another Katamari ball?
Giant smash. Become one super Katamari ball.
Maybe it makes the news. One super Katamari ball.
Or the two Katamari balls fall in love when they meet.
So they have become sentient, just the ball itself.
Although Magic Marmot says they roll the opposite way so they cancel each other out.
Oh, so they just doink off each other. Okay, I see. Okay, so they cancel each other out. So they just kind of doink off of each other. I don't know. And I think the Katamari ball would make the news at this point. Just the nightly news. That's what I'm going to draw.
Breaking news. Walter Cronkite.
Ooh, I like that. I like breaking news better. I can actually type. Oh, like matter and antimatter, says Magic Marmot. That's how they cancel each other out.
Become nothing.
So they cancel each other out. Okay, I can do that. I can do the news desk. Do the picture behind. Giant Katamari ball. Gosh, what do you think was the biggest video game in the last 10 years? Do you think it was Elden Ring?
Not like Call of Duty or Halo or any of those?
Probably Minecraft.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of thing where it's like there's probably a very straightforward right answer to that question based on sales figures, and I just don't know what it is.
Well,
I got my other phone. I can look it up.
It's probably something like Call of Duty. But Call of Duty built on the first-person shooter, which was created with like Quake and Doom. You know, there were innovations with it, but it didn't create the genre, right? Minecraft kind of created its own genre, and it created the idea of crafting in games, which entered so many other games. So that's a really good answer.
I mean, I think crafting as an idea in games existed before Minecraft.
Grand Theft Auto. The answer is Grand Theft Auto.
Well,
Grand Theft Auto?
In the last 10 years, generating over $8 billion in revenue and selling more than 235 million copies. Launched in 2013, spanning multiple console generations, it remains a dominant force in the industry.
yeah, that also makes sense. I mean, I really have enjoyed many, if not most, of the GTA games.
Red Dead 2 is still on my list. Red Dead 1 is still on my list. I have not had a chance to play those ones yet, but I played Grand Theft 5 and I played 4. Well, I attempted to play 4 on PC back when it first came out, but it was a really bad port. But yeah, that was... I don't think I ever played 3. Wait, no, was that the one? Was that Vice City?
No, it says V. Grand Theft Auto
Vice City was its own game. Like it was.
I love Vice City. That's probably my favorite one that I played.
Like Grand Theft Auto 3 was the first one, I think, that was sort of the fully realized kind of 3D, third-person perspective sandbox. Then Vice City was its own game. San Andreas was its own game, and then GTA 4 was the one that was sort of set in New York, and then GTA 5 is the most recent one. which is sort of set in kind of California, sort of a bunch of different
kind of an approximation of it, yeah. With tiny little like micro ecosystems of California.
Yeah, and then like you can sort of count Red Dead as kind of like Grand Theft Force, basically, which is the thing I did. It was surprising that because my friends and I used to kind of joke about they should do a Grand Theft Force game, and then they basically did. And originally we're kind of like, well, it's not going to be very fun to not have cars, right? But then they basically just said, yeah, but what if you took like every Western game or every Western movie and made that part of the game, right? So it's like gunfights and robbing banks and robbing trains and horse racing and shooting game. So it's just like, oh well, yeah, that works. That's a good idea. There's plenty of fun stuff you can do. Playing cards, shootouts.
I always really liked watching Assassin's Creed. Those games are pretty cool.
Yeah, I played Ezio. Gosh, I want to say 3, Assassin's Creed 3. But
the one I used to, because I had an ex who used to play a lot of games, and so I'd watch him play, and sometimes I'd play, but I'm just not very good at it. It was more fun just to watch him play. And there was that one where, I don't know what number it was, but they were like on a Caribbean island. It was like pirates.
5.
Yeah, but the Italian one was really cool too. Just even watching the dude climb buildings was interesting.
Yeah, what's funny about that one, and Stephen probably knows about this, is that Ubisoft had figured out a pirate game with Assassin's Creed, with 5. They figured it out. They figured out how to make pirating fun. They figured out like combat on the seas. They figured out how to make a pirate game. And then when they made a pirate game, they didn't make a very good pirate game. They could have just made their Assassin's Creed game and taken out all the assassin stuff and just left a cool pirate game and like bumped up the pirate stuff and just like reprogrammed it a little bit. But instead they like had this totally different thing where like you're not even really stepping foot on the islands. And it was just
Black Flag?
No, it wasn't Black Flag. No, this was the game Ubisoft came up with, I want to say like last year, 2024, about pirating. That was like Skull and Bones. That was the name of the game. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Well, they have been firing off a lot of their staff for a while now. My friend works for them, and they're a French-Canadian company, so they do things a little differently.
Yeah. Well, they, like I said, they figured out a fantastic pirate game with Black Flag. Black Flag is an amazing pirate simulation. And all they needed to do was just take out the assassin stuff and then bump up the pirate stuff in that game. And then, new environments, new characters and stuff, and they would have had a winner. But instead, they tried to reinvent the wheel.
Well, I've certainly been present at enough video game design fiascos to know that is a very believable sequence of events. So you can be there and go, okay, well, what was good about this game, and we're doing a follow-up, we're doing something similar. Like, this should be a fairly straightforward matter to make sure that this is fun, and let's just not put out a game that isn't fun. And you turn around and you realize that you just put out a game that isn't any fun. You don't know quite how you got there. You have to. There's a lot of Kool-Aid swapping in video game design. There's a lot of like, well, we're in it now, and it's not up to me these major decisions about what this or that piece of design is. So my job is to just get the part of it that is my responsibility complete, and just hope that whoever is making these big calls knows what they are doing. Sometimes they don't.
What flopped?
Well, I mean, like, it doesn't know if it's a flop exactly, but like, I mean, let me think of what some examples. I mean, some games just don't come out at all, right? I mean, that was the big thing. It's like there's a bunch of games at PopCap that we worked on, and then they just didn't release. Even though it was like, oh, this actually seemed like. I mean, there's a game that I designed that I was like pretty committed to, and then they canceled it, so I was a little salty about that. But there are other cases where it's like maybe it was the right call to, cancel this game. Maybe it didn't really have that much going for it. I mean, like, I don't think I ever worked on a game that was like truly miserable. Like, I think the worst, like Peggle 2 was a real bummer over the course of the entire development process for lots of different reasons. But I think the game, that was the thing. I point at it and go like, I mean, like, this is an okay game. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't quite have that brilliance and charm of the original, right? And so
I had fun playing it.
Pardon?
I had fun playing it.
Yeah,
I played it with my family.
There's nothing. It's not terrible, right? As I say, like, I don't think I've worked on anything. Like, I mean, well, Plants vs. Zombies 2 is probably a good example of a game that, like, I worked many years on PvZ2, and I was always very sort of like, yep, like, I'm in favor of this game. I think it's fun. I want to do the best I can to give our players cool content, et cetera, et cetera. But over time, you just sort of start adding stuff to the game for this reason or that. There's a lot of kind of direction changing and going, oh, well, we need to increase this metric or that metric, so let's do this. And then you turn around and you realize, like, oh, this whole game is like this huge Frankenstein's monster of a bunch of different competing systems that don't really make sense together, but we're kind of committed to them now. Like, you ever heard of the Winchester Museum?
Yes, but she created that because she was trying to confuse ghosts.
Right. Well, but that's basically what PvZ2 was they weren't trying to confuse ghosts, but
were they trying to confuse perhaps forensic accountants at the IRS?
Well, they were just sort of like, they just kept adding stuff to it, but there wasn't, like, they would add something to it because of some immediate need rather than because it made sense in the context of the entirety of the game, right?
Are you familiar with Second Wind, that group, that channel on YouTube? It was the people that used to be at the Escapists, but when they fired the head writer, they all left because they kind of read the writing on the wall of the direction that the Escapist was headed, which was like that corporate direction, and they wanted to, speak out themselves. But when they left, they took their audience with them, right? And so they're sponsored by Patreon and their fans and their supporters and stuff like that. But there is one of the shows that they have on their channel on YouTube called Design Deep Delve, right? Where he'll go and he'll look at a game and the mechanics of a game and see like why these mechanics work, why these ones don't, why this one might be difficult for new players to understand if it's a sequel or that kind of thing. And Peggle, or not Peggle 2, excuse me. Plants vs. Zombies 2 was one of those games that he did a deep delve into. And he blames a lot of those decisions to hit metrics on EA.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question that there was all, EA is a giant multi-billion-dollar, corporation, right? Like transnational concern, and so they are very much focused on the bottom line and the stock price. And, I mean, I've spoken on this subject before, but it's just the problem. I think that personally, as far as my concern, but of course, my big problem with EA is that they were just so caught in the trap of being a giant company that basically it meant that only giant numbers meant anything. So they would rather spend $90 million to make $100 million than spend like 2 to make 15, even though not only is spending 2 to make 15 vastly more profitable, but it's actually even larger in terms of the absolute value of profit. But if one fails, you have more to rely on. It's spreading your eggs out amongst many baskets. Well, and that was the other thing too, is that like EA is sort of like a lot of like modern Hollywood, is that there is just this belief that you can kind of metrics your way into truth. You can test something, you can do beta testing and user testing, and you can and if you do enough of it, you can pin down and guarantee that this thing is going to be a hit. And it's like, that's just not possible. If you could guarantee what things were going to be hits, there would not be flops. But big giant companies are run by people who are like MBA types, and who believe in forecasting and data analysis and marketing, and so they just go, well, we ran the numbers on this thing and it, we think we'll get a blah 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 return. Well, and again, like in the case or the thought experiment I was describing, it's like, okay, well, we spent 90 and we got 100, so that was like a $10 million profit, but we can point to that $100 million in revenue, even though we spent 90 to get it, and say, look, we had $100 million in revenue. Our shareholders like to hear that. Yeah. Shareholders don't care if you say, hey, we spent $2 million and got 15 back, even though that's 13 million, that's more profitable. Like it again, in absolute dollar profit terms, and it's vastly more profitable in terms of money spent versus money brought in. Yeah. But again, EA is so huge that all they care about is the bigness of the number. And they make the mistake of thinking that these things can be sort of engineered and assured. They Casey in the bad end. They just go, oh, we'll be fine. Like, we're working on this game. We're going to nail it. And Anthem is going to come out. Yeah, we're spending a ton of money on it. But when it finally comes out, it's going to be a huge hit. It's going to carry the studio. And then it's like, well, I hope you're right. If you're on that team, you got to pray with all your might that is correct. But you certainly do a good job of convincing yourself that the game is super fun. And you would be, if you were talking to somebody at the bar, you go, I'm working on this game. Let's talk about it, but it's really great. I'm flying around, blah, blah, blah. Really excited. You would be sort of there having drunk the Kool-Aid on your own, but then the world decides, nope, actually this sucks. And sometimes games just are, sometimes it has nothing to do with what you did. Or maybe the game, there's all sorts of, like not just games, but in movies as well, but there's just sort of like things that flop, but then are later realized and discovered as as triumph, right? Like the John Carpenter's The Thing.
I love The Thing. It's one of my favorite movies. And total tangent for a second, because you just mentioned The Thing. I love to challenge people to watch The Thing from the perspective of The Thing, and we are the monsters.
Well, indeed, there is a short story written by a Canadian sci-fi author named Peter Watts called The Things that basically does exactly that.
But if you watch it from that perspective, like basically this thing crashed on Earth, you know, in the first scene you see the ship crash, right? Or land, depending. It's very ambiguous, right? And then it gets frozen in the ice, and from its perspective it gets chipped out of the ice. We have really no idea what happened at the Norwegian camp if you ignore the prequel, right? And I'm ignoring the prequel. I'm going off of the first movie. And then it's a dog. All it knows is it sees two of the same species killing each other. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to be a dog for a while. Puts it in with other dogs that sense it's not a dog, right? It's still trying to be a dog, right? When it's transforming, like it's still trying to like itch its ear and stuff. Like no, look, I'm a dog, right? And it doesn't, like, I think it's just trying to survive, right? If it was trying to kill all of humanity, why is it making a spaceship in the basement when it's Wilford Brimley?
Well, that is a good question. I mean, the question of like how sapient or sentient is the thing is one of the sort of enduring mysteries of that movie, which makes it so compelling. I mean, in the context of, it's a shame because you hear like interviews with John Carpenter now, and people will now go up to John Carpenter and go like, "Oh man, the thing is so awesome." You know, like I know it wasn't a big hit back in the day, but it really has been proved out by history to be this incredible film. And I believe lately John Carpenter has been very salty and just like, well, what fucking good does that do me now?
Well,
like, everybody hated it when it came out, and basically
it opened
career.
It opened the same weekend.
People who were saying that it's a classic.
This is why it bombed. It opened the same weekend as E.T., Indiana Jones. Or no, not Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. E.T. was one of them. And then I'm trying to remember what it opened against. Just a sec.
It was 82, so this would have been like E.T., Poltergeist, Wrath of Khan. A crazy year for like a ton of amazing movies. Like Blade Runner came out that year, I think. But I mean, and it was like a super intense hardcore movie, which was the movie he set out to make. The people were not prepared for how gnarly it is, right? I mean, like even today, those crazy transforming effects are disturbing as hell. They're scary, and it was coming off of the sort of like 70s, early like 80s splatter horror movies where it was just sort of like, well, we don't have much of a story, but we've got a lot of like super fancy horror special effects.
It was up against E.T. and Poltergeist the same weekend, as well as Megaforce, which was it was ahead of an action film, Megaforce, and then it opened 8th in the country when it was made. So like even when it came out, 8th in the country is still the top 10, and people are like, oh, it bombed when it came out. That's not even a bomb. That's 8th in the country. That's a really good movie. When there was like 20 movies on marquee back in the 80s, in the early 80s, and you're 8th? Like, John Carpenter, don't be bitter.
Well, and for sure, I mean, like obviously he sees his own history the way he sees it, but you can kind of point to it and go like, well, it's not like it destroyed your career. You did make plenty of movies after The Thing,
Yeah.
Maybe not the ones you wanted to or whatever, but like your career didn't end after that film. I totally get why you'd be pissed off when you felt that you'd made this really tough, awesome movie and nobody seemed to get it.
Well, here's another thing too that I think a lot of people neglect to remember or may not know about the film is that it is a remake. It's a remake of The Thing from Another World, which is a 1950s sci-fi film. And he got chewed out by the film critic in the New York Times for releasing just a remake. And that was something else that like he didn't, I'm sure a lot of people read that review and went, why watch a remake when I can go see this new movie, Poltergeist, or this new movie, E.T.?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of as I say, but again, it's the whole reason I brought it up is just this sort of accident of history.
Yeah.
It's like we now look back at this movie and go like, how could you not understand what a great, like, all-time classic horror film it is? How scary it is, like how well it manages all the tension, like the effects, et cetera. Like
the scene where you see the shadow of the crew, the scene where you see the shadow and you're not sure who it is there at the base, right? And you see the dog go in. They used a crew member to make the shadows so that you didn't know exactly who it was. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's a movie that apparently, one of the more interesting now I should probably know it's 6:30, so I'm gonna wrap this up here and get out of here. But yeah, I mean, like, one of the great commentaries, and people don't really have DVDs anymore, but if you get if you want to buy the DVD of The Thing, you could get it with an excellent commentary between John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. And it's basically as if you're just watching the movie with them sitting on the couch with you. It's great.
Yeah. I miss commentary tracks. Like, I still have my DVD collection just for that.
And so, and they talk about all kinds of this stuff about, like, it was a rough shoot. It was, not comfortable to go and shoot in, whatever it was DC. They had, like, problems with the set, blah, blah, blah. But, and it was tough. But I think they all, at the time, they thought, well, we did make a good movie at the end of the day. And the fact that everyone shat on it had to have hurt. Even though, again, like, decades later, people are going, oh my God, this is in fact one of the great horror films, one of the great science fiction horror films of all time, one of the great films of all time.
It's not as serious a film. It's not as, I think, as important a film, but Austin Powers had something of a microcosm happen to it in the same way. It bombed in theaters when it was in theaters, but it was Austin Powers. No. The first Austin Powers movie bombed in theaters. Where it found its fame was the fact that it was one of the first DVD rentals. And so when people had DVD players and there wasn't many things to rent on DVD, Austin Powers was one of the first DVDs in Blockbuster and Hollywood Video that you could rent, and it was everywhere. And so people rented Austin Powers and went, oh, this is a cute movie. Oh, this is funny. And everyone started quoting Austin Powers to each other. And then they made, 2 or 3 sequels.
I guess I will take your word for that. I'd never heard that before. And my impression was that Austin Powers was perfectly successfully viewed well as a theatrical release, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was my memory of it, but let me see. Austin Powers.
I mean, there are certainly cases of something coming out sort of underperforming in the regular box office, but then people going, oh, this is actually finding a real life in video or DVD, but okay, well, it's
it is way past time. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not going to keep you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Produced by me, panelpanel.com, if you want to check out what I do. Angryflower.com if you want to check out what Stephen Notley does. He's fantastic. Buy his books. They're funny. I will see you guys in the future. Good night, Robin. Have a good one. Bye.